Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. I'm your host, Roy. Of course, we are in the middle of our digital marketing series on SEO with Bobby from Signa Marketing. Bobby, how are you doing today?
Doing so really, really great out here in Phoenix. We just got some rain, and so we're enjoying it. The heat came on, but we got some rain, so that's nice. How about yourself?
Yeah, we're doing good. We are drying out and fixing to move into spring, so everything is good here. So last week we did our second episode and it was on-site SEO. This series is based on SEO, 4 parts, and this is going to be part 3 today. We're going to talk about off-site SEO. So I encourage you to go back and listen to our 2 previous episodes. They kind of start with the basics, then the on-site, and so now we'll do off-site. So with that, I'm going to let you take it away. I think kind of where we left off is building authority and trying to drive our search rankings.
Awesome. No, sounds great. So offsite SEO, I feel like, is the portion of SEO that people hear less of. And on-site is always kind of like more on the forefront when it comes to business owners knowing about, SEO and so forth.
Right.
So one thing to note big time is offsite SEO is really the major impact that affects rankings in terms of driving rankings and attaining traffic.
Okay.
So the best way to explain it is, on-site SEO is what you're claiming. Basically, you're telling the user and search engines who you are, what you do, where you do it, here's my, what credibility you have, stuff like that. But these are all claims, and all the claims need to be backed. And so that's where off-site SEO comes to light on proving those claims. Yeah. And at a high level, offsite is having high authority websites that link back to your website, basically giving you a thumbs up and saying, hey, what this website's saying is actually true, and this is our vote of it.
Yeah, and this is where you probably have a better understanding. I'll let you explain the history of Google. This is really what, in the early days, what set them apart from other search engines and algorithms, because basically my understanding is they were looking at words on pages and saying, that was really all they did. If you mention your word on the page, then obviously they tried to move traffic to you. But when Google came along, they said, well, if we got 300 pages, 300 sites that all have the same word on it, who is the biggest authority? And so that's why they started looking at how many links from other pages link back to you. And then there was some tomfoolery going around with that. So then it's like they made these domain rankings. So now it's like if you like the big ones, the MSNs, the Forbes, and, they have very high rankings. So if they link back to you, very good, versus, a link farm linking back to you, it's going to kind of get you in trouble.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, you want to kind of stay away from any fake stuff.
Yeah.
The more real mentions that you can get, the more real links, the better and the safer, of course.
Yeah, and it just takes time. I think, we talked about that earlier, and it never hurts to mention it again, is that this is a long-term strategy. Yeah, I mean, we can post something that goes viral and we'll get a big kick from it, but typically this SEO is a long play. It's a grind. There's no silver bullet. It's doing the right things with all of your posting, with all of your pages, and keeping that up as you go out in time. And it'll pay off, with a long tail. It's not something that you see a spike and then it goes away. It'll be something that you can stay up there.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, even if people are thinking about traditional PR, you're not just going to have one story written about you and it changes your life. Yeah. It can, maybe if you got on Oprah or Ellen tomorrow, right, type of deal. But, PR, those fundamentals are the same here when we talk about offsite SEO, is that it's essentially digital PR, and you're looking to build that over time. And it's not going to be built in a day type of deal. So you want to be able to make sure you have a strategy and a process for executing a consistent effort of attaining those votes of backlinks from high authority sites. And you're going to get a mixture over time. You'll get sites that maybe don't have that much authority, but if it's high quality and it's relevant, you should absolutely take it in that sense. And then you definitely want to get a mixture of really high authority sites linking back. But there's a couple of different strategies that we can dive into on how to do that. One is definitely one of my favorites, which is guest blog posting. Doing guest blog posts essentially what you're doing is seeking out publishers or other websites that are speaking about the same subject as yours and offering to write a free piece of content for them. So, and in that free piece of content, you'll have a natural, highly relevant link pointing back to your site to a specific page that actually makes sense to tie those two. Right. So what happens is, you're getting a great, link back, and the publisher is getting a free piece of content that's of value to their users. Yeah. So that's what, at a high level, what that exchange looks like. And it's always to meet, the objective of delivering value to each end user, in that sense. So right. It's not just to do a trade or anything like that, but it's actually because the publisher genuinely feels that you're going to write a piece of content that their audience actually wants.
Right. Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier that, we need to take a view of this as PR, and that this is a long-term exposure, because I may not need your service today, but if you are doing SEO and other things right, you're going to stay in front of me, or that way in a month, 2 months from now, when I do need that product or service, you're going to be top of mind. So we need to keep that in mind too.
Yes, 100%. And even it can even dabble into forming actual true relationships with a lot of different publishers and the individuals right. within these publishing sites and stuff. Because you always want to think of, from a content marketing perspective, how can I provide value to their audience? Yeah. And when you're providing value, the opportunities open up where you can receive a link back to your article, et cetera. And the more you do that, the more consistent that effort is, the rankings will come over time. And what you're building is an asset, because those links, you're not going to lose them tomorrow. If you're right. building fake links, you can lose them. Yeah. No one really thinks about that. They think like, hey, I built this link, it's going to last forever. And it's not the case. I mean, a lot of sites go down or maybe change or something like that, and you lose that link. And so by doing these types of strategies too, you're building something that's much more sustainable as well.
Yeah. And I assume that if I write an article for somebody with a higher domain, if I've got it keywords that the topic relates to my business or service, that the chances are I may get exposure over on their site because they've got the higher domain authority than I might if I posted the same content on mine. So there's also, just just their sheer numbers and the however much traffic they get, we can think our odds go up by being on their site too.
Yes, 100% correct too. You want to look at also, how much traffic is their website already attaining? Yeah. Because if there's already a ton of traffic going to their site of loyal, readers, that's a great way to pretty much I don't want to say the word siphon, but right. That's where you're gonna receive some traffic from their audience because they're being introduced to your site. Yeah. And so that's why there's just so many benefits, and it's also why SEO gets very complicated, because it's we always want to try to simplify things and say, okay, it's this one thing that's gonna right. make everything work. And this is not how the SEO right. landscape works. That's why I look at it like a puzzle. Yeah. And what you're trying to do is just really get this puzzle really organized so that then you can execute upon it.
Yeah, and I can attest to this. Before you start out on the backlink journey, you need to get an extra helping of patience, because it takes time, reaching out, especially to, these higher domain authorities. You have to realize that they get a lot of requests, and that's why you really need to be able to market yourself to them, and you really need to have a very well written and a high quality content article to present to them.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly it. It's a long process. That's why it's tough. That's why you kind of just grinding it out. Yeah. And there's strategies and processes and systems that you can implement and stuff like that to really streamline workflow. But this is why, true SEO is hard, and why it's an investment of time and resources. But, to build something true and real, it's not gonna be something that you can just, do maybe an hour a month or something like that.
Yeah. Now, so what about local? That's kind of more of a, the bigger ones, maybe more national exposure. But what if we want to try to, if we're a local service provider in a geographic area, how can we go about helping ourselves with that?
Absolutely. So when it comes to local SEO, just to keep things simple, I like to say that your Google My Business is about 50% of SEO efforts. in the sense that you want to make sure that it's not only just built out, but it's really, you're taking advantage of all the features that Google gives you within that profile.
Okay.
Making sure that all your services are really built out and listed in there, making sure that every item that's relevant to your business is filled out within that profile. And then regarding that profile, make sure that there's a consistent process for posts and making sure maybe it's like a weekly post or something like that that you're sending out, and that you have a process for obtaining reviews on a consistent basis.
Okay.
You should have a protocol internally, if it's yourself or a team, that says, okay, when a happy customer, before they leave, this is the checklist of what we do to get a review. And so you want to make sure that your internal infrastructure is in sync with that, because that'll compound and it'll affect your local SEO over the course of time. It's also how people make buying decisions, because if you have 3 people ranking the local pack, is that, where you see listings with the stars,
Right.
there's typically only 3. And if everyone has, everyone's ranking at the top right there, people are like, okay, well, who am I going to choose? And reputation is usually one of those huge indicators that say, okay, I want to call this one because they have 150 reviews and it's 5 stars.
Exactly.
Type of deal. So that's one major factor. The other, in relation to Google My Business, is going to be making sure that your NAP, your name, address, and phone number, is consistent to the T across all online directories, which is what we also call citations.
Okay.
And those citations are always going to at least carry those 3, details at a bare minimum. But it's a way for a search engine to ensure that they understand who you are and what your contact information is. When they start to see discrepancies between citations for a certain business, the trust level decreases.
Yeah.
So what you're looking to do is make sure that you're just 100%, solid in terms of your NAP across your online presence, and that boosts the trust level from a search engine standpoint.
Yeah, we need to make that point to always reach out to get those, to get the recommendations that we can put on our website as well. I think that means a lot, because the one thing with Yelp and some of these other ranking or the evaluation sites is we have to remember what is it that upset customers will reach out to 8 people. Upset customers will tell 8 people. A happy customer will tell 1. And so we kind of have to work harder to help promote and move those happy customers out to the front. Not that we want to cover up. We can always learn from poor reviews for sure. Try to manage it. And I know we don't want to get too off track on that, but I think it's a good way to address them. We can't dismiss them. You can't call people out for being crazy, because I've seen some strings where the business owner and the client had a problem. It's a typical problem you may encounter at any business, but then the owner jumps in and just makes it worse.
Right. Yeah. They're like, hey, here's a fire. Let me put some more gas on it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was just a match for a moment, and then all of a sudden it was a bonfire by the time this guy got through with it. So it's just good. We have problems. We have to address it and say, you know what? Sorry you had it. I'm going to make it right for you, because I look for that. Businesses are going to have trouble. How do they handle it once that we get? Anyway, I know that's kind of digressing.
But that's such a great opportunity because when you have exactly what you're mentioning is when there's a fire, you have an opportunity to showcase how you as a business handle those.
Right.
And typically I see those as almost like a blessing of opportunity, because you don't necessarily always get those opportunities unless something bad happened. Right. So it's always something to kind of see in a positive light of an opportunity to showcase, hey, cool, this is how we can show people in public forum how we handle these situations.
Yeah, and negative feedback. It's sometimes we think that it's not always good. It's not always in our best interest, for sure. But I think you got to look at it from the business owner. If we don't get negative feedback, how do we know things are wrong? How can we change? And so that was why, I always welcome feedback from my clients, because I want to know what can I change to make this customer experience better. If I never hear from you, then it just stays the same poor quality that people may be experiencing. That, because you got to look at it this way. What I think is good and what I want is very different from what customers want. So anyway, we always have to be dialing that in. But All
So
right.
true.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Bobby. Well, anything else you want to add on the offsite before we get out of here?
So I think that wraps up offsite SEO. I mean, there's a
Okay.
few other pretty technical ways to execute backlink acquisition campaigns.
Okay.
We touched on guest blog posting. I would say to really keep this simple, just because there's more technical strategies out there for sure.
Yeah.
But I would encourage people to participate more on digital PR, even from doing things, even like item like videos like this, where you're producing content, because when there's content produced, there's always links involved,
Yeah.
and to connect people and stuff like that. And so the more you continue to really put in the time and the effort to building your digital PR, the better.
Yeah. All right, Bobby. Well, again, thank you so much for stopping by. We appreciate the all this great information that you're giving us. So, how can people reach out to you there at Signa Marketing?
Yeah, so you can visit us at signamarketing.com. That's SIGN as in Nancy, A marketing.com. And we also have a YouTube show called Blueprint, where I answer any and all digital marketing questions related to marketing your business online. So if anyone's out there that has a specific question, and even the more specific, the better, feel free to send it our way. You can find us at Signa Marketing at any our social media handle everywhere. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. You can find us there, and just submit a comment or a direct message, and we'll make sure that it gets answered on the next episode.
All right. Awesome. Well, y'all reach out to Bobby, see how he can help you on your SEO. Next week, we're going to be back with re-optimizing or redesigning existing sites. Sometimes we've let things go so far that maybe it's time for a little bit of an overhaul. So we'll talk about that next time. Again, thanks for listening. This is the Business of Business podcast at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com. We're on all the major social media networks as well as podcast platforms. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your business.